Let me know when. Oh, we're good? All right, here we go. Salute to NBA Nation on this Monday afternoon. Another edition of the NBA Report. CP the franchise, Al Tritaros on the ones and twos. On today's episode, the Orlando Magic are staying hot, man. 7-game winning streak. We're going to touch on the Magic's win streak and how that has come about. Devin Booker torches the Knicks at MSG with last-second heroics. We're going to talk about some of the in-season tournament details and potential clinchers this week. But first, we're going to start off the show with the Pacers check-in report. And who better to have on this show? We've been promoting the show since last week. She is the creator of Basketball She Wrote, a blog about the basketball played by the Indiana Pacers, one of the sharpest minds in the game. Caitlin Cooper joins the show. Caitlin, how you doing today? Welcome to the NBA Report.
Hey, thanks for having me on. Always excited to talk about Pacers, especially with a show based out of New York. So let's do
Yes.
this.
Oh, man. Absolutely. Let's do it. Well, listen, as basketball fans and analysts, Alice and myself, we got to respect all teams, all 30 teams, including the Indiana Pacers, who are off to a good start. The Halliburton train is off and running once again. What's been, I guess, let's go back from, last year to now. I think what's been your biggest difference in how this team looks so far?
I think it's just the polarity, right? I mean, I think they're hovering right around still. They're one of the greatest offenses of all time right now, still number one in half court offense. Their transition frequency and efficiency has actually dropped off a little bit by comparison to last year, but they've been so effective in the half court that their offense is just absolutely humming. But then when you look at the other end of the floor, which fortunately you don't have too often because the offense typically allows us to avoid it, but they're still bottom five defense hovering around dead last right now currently. So it's kind of a bit of whiplash when you watch the Indiana Pacers, both figuratively and literally. You're going to watch them get up and down the court, and you're going to watch two very different levels of product on the offensive and defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, and for one of the reasons that the Pacers are doing so well this season and have that dynamo offense is one, Tyrese Halliburton. Caitlin, did you see Halliburton having this type of breakout season, or was this always like, could you have seen this like last season based on how he performed? And, the Pacers were in the mix for the playoffs last year, but then he gets hurt and then they fall out. So is this new? Or has this been like in the books?
Yeah, I mean, I think he was close to being on an all NBA trajectory before he got hurt coincidentally in that game against the Knicks and then missed 10 games. And that really took the Pacers season toward a different trajectory. But this year, I think it's more about that they found out that, hey, a little bit more of Tyrese is actually a really good thing. So his usage goes up a little bit, and somehow he's even more efficient at all three levels than what he was last year. And like you watch them play that in-season tournament game last week against the Hawks, which was virtually an all-star game, comes early. Both teams score over 150 points, but he goes off for 7 threes in the third quarter, is really exerting himself as a scorer. They get into the fourth quarter, he never scores, but the Hawks are three-quarter court trapping him. So just by his presence being on the court and what he was as a scorer, which sometimes he can be very differential, he's very wired to be pass first, but we've seen in a lot of games this year where coming out of halftime, he really starts to look for his own offense, and that's making the offense easier for his teammates. So then Buddy Hield's able to take that win home. Like he's able to play in those gaps when they're getting those odd man advantages, make shots. He goes 5 of 5 in the last 5 minutes of crunch time, and they clinched Group A in the in-season tournament. So it's just more of Tyrese has turned out to be a better thing. And then he's a very unpredictable player. I always kind of like to refer to him as a counterculture. He rejects more screens than almost anybody in the NBA. His shooting form is so unorthodox that I think sometimes it makes people believe that they have more room to contest him than they actually do, because his release is still very quick, even though it's very low. He obviously loves the no-look passes. He loves jump passes that create passing lanes for other people. He uses scissor steps. He uses cut dribbles sometimes when he doesn't even need to, but because he's done it, then you don't know if he's going to do it the next time. So he's just a very unpredictable player, a pleasure to watch.
He's talked about wanting to be a bit more aggressive in terms of his shot selection and shot diet. You've covered him as extensively as any in the league. Have you seen that change year over year so far, just in terms of how he's approaching his shot creating? Obviously, as a playmaker, he's a savant, leading the league in dimes. But as a shooter, have you seen much of a leap between last year and this year in terms of how he's approaching getting into his shots?
Yeah, man, I think one of the main ways that teams would scheme against him in the past is that you want to weak him. He's not a great finisher going to his left. And because he is so floater heavy, and because when he creates space as a shooter, he wants to, it's unorthodox again, he wants to take a sidestep to his right, which typically righty shooters would sidestep back to their left. But you want to weak him to his left because when he goes into his floater, it's going to be a strong hand contest. But now, when you're seeing opponents do that, like Patrick Beverley did this in the game that they played against the Sixers, he just automatically he'll be like, "Oh, you're going to send me left? Well, that's what way I wanted to go anyways." And then he rejects it, and he's a lot more comfortable going and stopping automatically and going to his left to release a shot. He's more aggressive looking for those moves where maybe in the past he would have passed out of those and let his teammates kind of play 4-on-4. I just think it's a different wiring for him, especially like I said, coming out of halftime where you'll see the Pacers get a 50-point quarter against the Charlotte Hornets. They'll get, close to that against the Atlanta Hawks in that in-season tournament game last week, and it's all starting with him as the initial scorer.
Now, Caitlin.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So Caitlin, like, I just gotta know, like, how has he been able to balance like the scoring? Because he's averaging 25.4 points on the season. He's got a shooting split of 50, 40, 90, and then yet he's averaging 12.1 assists. SCP noted he's leading the league in assists. How is he able to balance all of that? Because you're talking about his efficiency from the field has gone up, but at the same time, he's also able to make everyone else look better. So what's the secret to that?
I think some of it almost goes back to Team USA. When he was asked, like, what was his main takeaway from that, he said, "I'm tired of losing." But when I was watching it, what was interesting is a lot of people, like, it wasn't great for Team USA for Tyrese Halliburton and Jalen Brunson to be playing together just because of defensive issues and having like the smaller backcourt and what some of their limitations can both be. But I was very interested in those minutes because it meant that Jalen Brunson was going to be on ball and Tyrese was going to be playing off ball. And I knew headed into this season that there was going to be more teams that tried to scheme him out of actions, whether that was half court trapping, whether it was full court pressure, because he is so dynamic in transition. And little by little, I felt from the friendlies to when those games started counted, he got better at making himself available as an off ball threat. So when you're talking about balancing the passing and the scoring, there's times in the fourth quarter where they might be playing the Chicago Bulls and Alex Caruso's like, "I'm going to face guard you," or Jalen Suggs is going to full court pressure him, like on this 7-game win streak for the Orlando Magic. And one of the things that the Pacers will have him do is he automatically becomes like a stack screener or a back screener for one of their other ball handlers, like Bruce Brown or Andrew Nemhard. When he leaks out, he has to continue to make himself available because people want to deny those passing lanes. So that's one of the balances where it's like, okay, in these certain instances, I'm going to let you go ahead and run this offense and I'm going to play off ball. And it's actually going to help my efficiency because I am such a good catch and shoot 3-point shooter. So I feel like that's kind of been an underrated element of his game. Now, do his teammates always necessarily take advantage of this? They don't necessarily have another number 2 option, another creator, so to speak. And that was a problem in that game against the Magic. But I do think that that's been an evolution in his game in terms of how he balances those two things.
Well, once again, we're talking to Pacers insider Caitlin Cooper. Salute to everybody in the chat. Hit the like button, hit the share button, and subscribe to the channel. This is the NBA Report. CP the franchise, Alex Shataros on the other side. Caitlin, on the defensive end, it's so interesting when you watch this team because they're so polarizing on both ends of the court. But the defense to me is puzzling because you have a guy like a Miles Turner, right? You have your rim protector, your shot blocker. You have athleticism abound on this team. You have youth. You have guys with wingspan. But so what to you is, the chief issue or the top 3 issues with this Pacer defense? You have Miles Turner calling out effort, Carlisle pointing to certain things. What do you see when you're watching these games in terms of one of or the chief concern in terms of their defense?
I think part of the problem is it varies from game to game on which things you could kind of point to. So like for people who don't know, last year's scheme, they were very aggressive at packing the paint. They would have a very early and exaggerated nail presence. They would kind of be overzealous helping from the low man, and they gave up quite a few corner threes. And despite putting those extra bodies in the paint and some of the protections they tried to use to insulate Tyrese Halliburton, they were still giving up a lot at the rim and a lot in the paint regardless, in part because sometimes they might get slammed by a flare screen. They'd give up cuts. They'd still just don't have that many stout on-ball defenders. So this year they completely changed that up. They decide everything in the pick and roll is 2 versus 2. So they are locking down the 3-point line. They're limiting threes better than any team in the NBA, but they are giving up a ton in the paint. So when they're defending the pick and roll, people can imagine this. They want to be pressed up and going over on those screens. And sometimes they are good at that, and sometimes they are not. So in this most recent game against the Pistons, The starting lineup with Tyrese and Buddy was struggling with that. Cade Cunningham scored 22 points in the first half. By the fourth quarter, they ended up making lineup adjustments, played Andrew Nembhard, played Bruce Brown. Those two are a lot stickier at the point of attack. They're pressing up and the scheme works better. But that you can't guard every opponent 2 versus 2. So they found out like, hey, when we're guarding empty ball screens against Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey, we're virtually just getting cooked. And maybe in those situations, we need to be a little bit more willing to adjust our scheme and put somebody at the nail. And maybe the Sixers, we're more willing to let them beat us because they're not quick trigger 3-point shooters than just continuing to give up an 80-point game from Joel Embiid and Tyrese Haliburton. So they made that type of an adjustment. But there's also games where you can point to, like last week against the Toronto Raptors. From the very beginning, they do not double the post, but they doubled Pascal Siakam because Siakam has practically been more efficient in the post than the Raptors half-court offense as a whole. And because they don't do it, they're very bad at rotating out of the double teams. Sometimes then they're just like letting Pascal go 1-versus-1 versus Buddy without putting another foot in the paint. Like a lot of mistakes that are outside of their scheme in that particular game. Like Tyrese is helping one pass away and they're giving up a 3 when ideally they want to lock down the 3-point line. So I guess to summarize, they do have physical limitations. They're a very athletic team, but they don't have anybody they can throw out there and guard Pascal Siakam 1-versus-1. They make mistakes that are contrary to some of the scheme that they're wanting to put out there. And then also, like, sometimes they just can't play those types of lineups. Like, it's okay to go to Andrew and Bruce and Ben and Miles against the Pistons because the Pistons rank 26th in half-court offense. They turn the ball over. They're basically a turnover factory. Are you going to be willing to not play Tyrese and Buddy until there's 2 minutes left in a game against a high-powered offense? Probably not. So it's they have a very delicate balance that they have to find where they have defenders, but can they have offensive players and defenders on the floor at the same time? Not always. They don't have a lot of two-way players.
You see that you see something that the Pacers will address by the trade deadline this year to get players who are defensive two-way players, because it seems like to me that's just all unsustainable, especially if you want to be a deep playoff team, that you're going to need defense at some point. So is that something the Pacers are going to do?
I think there's 2 ways to look at it. I think it's very interesting because the other night after that Pistons game, Rick Carlisle pointed out and said, like, we're playing the same exact scheme as the Orlando Magic, and the Orlando Magic have the #1 defense in the NBA. Well, yes, but you don't have a Jalen Suggs on this roster, and the clearest facsimile to Jalen Suggs is Andrew Nembhard, who's no longer a starter because they signed Bruce Brown, and they also don't have near the degree of length that the Orlando Magic have at nearly every position on the court. So I think by guarding 2-versus-2, they're hoping that there's going to be a slow build. There'll be inflection points like what Bennedict Mathurin had at the end of the game against the Bucks when he got 2 deflections from Giannis and prevented Chris Middleton from turning over his shoulder, and that those will add up. And there'll be a slow build and they'll get enough internal development that the scheme, in addition to locking down the 3-point line, will eventually work. From what I've seen, I think that eventually they've tried 2 very different schemes. They're bottom 5 in both cases. I think it's asking a lot to think that these people are going to find solutions against some of the bigger wings, to Alex's point, where I think that they will eventually get to a point where, in order to make strides so that they aren't just having to outscore every single opponent, that they're going to have to make roster changes at a certain point in time to get better on that end of the floor.
Yeah. Wing depth is certainly a priority. And us covering the Knicks, we certainly see it night in and night out. Now, you did mention Bruce Brown. Pacers did invest a significant portion of last offseason's cap space in that acquisition. What's been your overall impressions of Brown so far on both ends?
I think that Bruce has been everything that they expected and wanted from him. I think that, it was always a question of would they get more of Brooklyn Nets Bruce Brown or more of Denver Nuggets Bruce Brown, and I think they've gotten a little bit of a mix of both. There are times where, like, if he's being guarded by a weaker assignment, like the Raptors put Jakob Poeltl on him for a time, where now he is a screen and roll player who can, slip into space with Tyrese Haliburton. And then there's other times where maybe Tyrese is really getting pressured, like what I mentioned with Alex Caruso, and now Bruce Brown is running offense. They do put him on top assignments a lot of the time. It's just that there's certain circumstances where I can watch and be like, there's literally nothing else Bruce Brown could have done there to stop Franz Wagner or to stop Pascal Siakam unless he finds a way to grow mid-possession. So that's kind of the thing. But I think that they've gotten everything that they wanted from him. I think that he's been to expectations.
And I just got to ask for the Knicks fan contingent that's been checking in on one Obi Toppin, and there's Obi.
Go ahead, man.
There is a base. There's a base. I'm not one of them that's like tuning in on the Pacers on a nightly basis, but there's a base in Knicks Nation that's tuning in because, look, we do want to see our guy do well. How's Obi been with the Pacers so far this year as another offseason acquisition for that team?
As Knicks fans know, he's always active. He's always moving. That's probably my favorite thing to watch about Obi Toppin. So, like, 2 of his better games, they played the Spurs, and Wemby was assigned to Obi Toppin. So in order to move him as a weak side defender and make sure that his space wasn't there clogging up lanes, anytime wherever the ball was, Obi was cutting opposite. And that was a really big, I felt, contributing factor into why the Pacers ended up scoring like 150 points in that game, in addition to it being like a back-to-back from the Spurs and the Spurs defense just being really sketchy. I thought that was a really valuable element. And he did the same thing in this most recent game against the Hawks. The Hawks blitz more than any team in the NBA, and their stances on the backside of that really puzzle me. They can rarely, like, the ball you man principles rarely apply to the Atlanta Hawks, but Obi took total advantage of that. He scored 12 points, I believe, off cuts, and the Hawks rank last in that category according to Synergy, and they give up 15 per game. And Obi had 12 just in that game. So he's not always going to be in the closing lineup for the Pacers. He was in the game against Atlanta because they needed to go smaller and they were three-quarter court trapping and they needed the speed and the ground coverage to play fast. But a lot of times they lean defensively and we'll put Aaron Nesmith out there at the 4. It gives them a little bit more flexibility with what they want to do defensively. But I think in terms of, like, I had some concerns going into the season about, like, oh, what if opponents start guarding Obi with 5s and cross match and put smaller defenders on Miles, because that's limited Miles in the past. But like the Raptors did that the other night. They put Pirtle on to Obi for a time, and Obi was just like, hey, I'll just roll into space here. He hasn't scored a ton of points off the roll, which I know Knicks fans wanted to see now that he was going to be playing with a floor spacing big. He doesn't always have the spacing, the pacing, I should say, with the pick and roll ball handler to put himself in the passing window, but he rolls enough where, because of what his vertical pop is, he typically draws a tag and has some degree of gravity there. So that's been nice to see. I think that they've gotten, mainly, given that they basically gave up pocket lint for Obi, I think Obi's contributed above that level. So it's been a good fit for him, especially in a fast-paced scheme where he just gets to run with Tyrese Halliburton, and Tyrese is just going to throw the ball up to him, and he's going to get lobs placed perfectly to him. It's been a good fit.
I thought it was perfect. And as you said, they gave up pocket lint to get him. I think there were some Knicks fans who expected that once he got to Indiana that he was just going to turn into, a Julius Randle, a guy that you could just dump it down to and just go get his. But no, he's still a finisher. But in this offense, in this Carlisle offense, playing with a guy like a Halliburton, I just felt like they were going to get a lot out of him. And so far, he looks great in this high-octane offense, man. Looks fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's where the expectations, I think you pretty much explained it perfectly there. Like, I don't think that he's necessarily going to stop. I think that, I don't know this per se for the Pacers. In my opinion, they still don't have a starting 4, but what they're getting from Obi, I think, has been valuable, and that he fits the way they play and has been a stylistic advantage for them, particularly in transition.
I have to ask them, because there is another player on the Pacers that, Jarace Walker, because why hasn't he gotten enough playing time? He seems to be more in line of like what the traditional 4 would be for that team, what you need, like, offensively and defensively. So what's been his deal?
Yeah, Jarace, I think, as an archetype, like when we look ahead to the playoffs, is a player who it seems like the league values a little bit more, where we watch players like Aaron Gordon and how valuable they can become in that setting, versus if we look at what the trade return for the Knicks was for Obi Toppin, what the trade return for the Hawks was for John Collins, or what the return has been for Christian Wood in the past. I think that those types of defense first guys, like what Jarace in theory should be able to do eventually, I think that's kind of the dividing point, though. I think the idea of his defense and the reality of his current defense aren't quite the same thing. So Jarace, very early on, even at media day, Rick Carlisle made a comment before he'd even been asked a question where he was like, we're hoping that our young guys will be ready to play, but if they aren't, the G League is a tremendous resource, and Tom Hankson is very good at developing guys. And that was an indicator to me that maybe what was behind the scenes was that Jarace wasn't quite ready to play. And in the games where he has gotten in, like late, he played almost the whole fourth quarter against the Celtics, almost the whole fourth quarter against the Magic. And I don't want it to make it sound like he exclusively only made mistakes, but he made enough mistakes on the defensive end where it's like, if this is what's happening in garbage time, the idea from some fans that he's going to fix them defensively or make them better defensively at the 4 right now, I don't think is accurate. He likes to chase the ball a lot on that end of the floor. The scheme that he played in college is very different than the scheme that he's playing with the Pacers, and his shot still has quite a ways to go. He always is drifting to his left on the release rather than being straight up and down. That's leading to a lot of short shots where his shot selection needs to be better, and then the defense just is going to have to get more principled. But he's only 20 years old, and I just urge people to be patient with him. And I also don't think the coaching staff's holding him back, which is a prevalent thought.
Yeah. And once again, we're talking to Caitlin Cooper. Pacers insider, creator of the Basketball She Wrote blog and Patreon. Make sure you guys check her out. So to everybody in the chat, hit the like button, hit the share button, subscribe to the channel, the NBA Report, CP the Franchise, and Alex Rotaros on the other side. Caitlin, another young, promising player in this Pacers organization, Bennedict Mathurin. He's come back. He's off of the bench. He's coming off the bench. You wrote about how the impact that he and Nebhard had in their win against the Pistons, where the Pacers were able to get the job done without much or without a major involvement from Tyrese Halliburton. What do you think about Mathurin in his sophomore year in terms of the Pacers' plans, and what do you see as like some of the goals for a successful season for him?
Yeah, I mean, he had a tremendous game against the Milwaukee Bucks where I ended up writing a piece that he was finally kind of stepping into his two-way power. And if I was the coaching staff, I would have had that on an endless loop and been like, we've seen this. We know that you can do it now. This is the standard that we're holding you to, because defensively, he still has quite a bit of room to grow, where especially off ball and off ball settings, it's kind of, you're able to target him as an off ball defender, which is a weird thing to say, but it's true. Where like they played a game against the Cavs where he was getting targeted by Karis LeVert in one-on-one settings. So after halftime, he's guarding Max Strus, and now on a single possession, he's getting back cut by two different players on the same play. So it's kind of those types of things. And then I anticipated from him that the beginning of the season might be a little bit rocky because his shot wasn't falling toward the back end of last season, which was leading to more short closeouts. And because he is such a powerful driver and is so good at drawing contact, that he would see more help on those drives. And also because he isn't a very prevalent passer. So all of this is adding up to a place where he tends to see more than one defender when he gets to the rim. And it's a question of, can he find the kick out avenue and make the right play? And he's still not necessarily hitting shots right now. And I think he's just trying to navigate some of that. And I think overall, like if you were asking the question, if the Pacers are trying to win games, you would start Buddy Hield, which is what they are doing now and what change they made against the Atlanta Hawks. But when they get to the end of the season, I think the most important question for the Pacers is going to be, who is the core of this team? And I think it's pretty critical that either Ben and or Andrew Nembhard are very clearly in that conversation, that you can say they are core critical members of this team. So finding that balance, I think, is going to be challenging for the Pacers to walk this year, in part because the wavelength and connection between Tyrese Halliburton and Buddy Hield is just so strong. And it's telling that they made that change before that in-season tournament game when it needed to be clinched, because Rick was basically like, we made these changes for spacing and we talked to management about it to get it cleared. And this is a game that we needed to win. So, when the cards were on the table and they needed to win a game, it was time to start Buddy Hield and Aaron Nesmith again, and Ben and Obi went back to the bench. So that was somewhat telling, but I think that those are the main strides, like Ben being able to shoot when he's open and actually knocking down shots and continuing little by little to have more of those inflection points on defense where you can see measurable growth is going to be critical to how he meshes with Tyrese Halliburton in the long term.
Now, Caitlin, you mentioned how Bennedict went back to the bench. Obi went to the bench that game. And this is something that's been interesting while watching the Pacers from afar, is that Rick Carlisle has kind of not solidified what his rotations are. He's made those changes. Do you see this continuing through the rest of the season, or is this like the core now that we see to finish off the season with the starting five that he has?
I mean, to hear him talk about it, especially after that Pistons game, he was basically like, if I have to pull guys to get what we got defensively, maybe that's what I need to do. So, I mean, they've made it very much since the beginning of the season that nothing would be set in stone and that there would be competition and that they would be playing the guys who they felt made sense in those matchups. And I think that's mainly what they did. I mean, prior to the first game, they said that they had the hardest conversation they had with the player, telling TJ McConnell that he wasn't going to be in the rotation because it was better for the franchise that Andrew Nembhard be playing primary point guard. Then Tyrese had a stomach issue, which Tyrese did end up playing. By the next game, they were looking for ways to play TJ McConnell. And TJ's been in and out of the rotation for certain matchups where it's made sense. So I don't necessarily think it's set in stone now. I am on the record saying that I didn't think that the starting lineup that they started the year with would be the one that they finished the season with. And I do think that their best lineup is the one that they went to, with Tyrese, Buddy, Bruce, Aaron Nesmith at the 4, and Miles Turner at the 5, because I just think it gives them the best spacing and the most defensive versatility, especially if they want to keep Miles out of some pick and roll action. So I won't be surprised if that's kind of the base lineup that they go to, but I think that there'll be still room for them to make changes, because it's funny that you said that about how many lineups they've played, because they played a garbage time lineup in the fourth quarter against the Magic with like Isaiah Jackson and Jarace and Ben Shepherd and TJ and Jordan Nwora. And that was, after playing that entire fourth quarter, it was like their fourth most used lineup on the season, a garbage time lineup. So that tells you how much shuffling they've been doing.
It's a Knicks fan's dream, CP.
Absolutely. Couple more for you, Caitlin. Miles Turner, past couple of years, it wasn't clear what his future was going to be with the Pacers. Did he want out? Did he want to trade? He signs a 2-year extension with them last year, playing well with Halliburton. Go back to the Philly win that they had just a couple weeks ago. I think he was outstanding in that fourth quarter. What do you see with in terms of the future with Miles Turner and this young rebuilding Pacer team?
That was really him kind of turning the page on something, because he's had a lot of struggles against Joel Embiid in the past, and not mainly because he's gotten in foul trouble and just hasn't been in the games, which he was in foul trouble in that particular game. The Pacers went really small with Aaron Nesmith and Obi Toppin out there for a time and really fronted Embiid. Miles comes back in and has one of the best quarters of the season. And similarly, the same thing happened against the Pistons here recently, where in the first half, he didn't even have a single rebound. They were getting absolutely crushed on the glass. There was one position where Isaiah Stewart had 4 offensive rebounds on the same play. And Miles was like, I took that personally. I looked at the box score. I knew that I had to be better. And he had more points off of putbacks in that fourth quarter than he's had in any game this season, just in that fourth. So him pairing with Andrew Nembhard at the point of attack and Buddy at the point of attack made his defense better. There was a clip in the first quarter where Cade and Jaden were running a pistol action, and Cade got right to the rim, and Miles looked at his teammates, was like, come on, guys, I have 2 fouls. I have to come out of the game now. And then in the second quarter, to see guys really pressing up, it was like, okay, this is what your pick and roll coverage can look like when there's better, I don't necessarily want to use the word effort, but better execution at the point of attack than what we've seen somewhat throughout the season. I will say overall, I don't think he's personally defended at the same level as he has in the past. I think if the Pacers, if it was up to them, they would be using him more as like a weak side roamer and keeping him out of these pick and roll coverages. They just don't really have that option. Like, other than putting Aaron Nesmith on a 5 and cross matching and switching the ball screens, that's really all they can do if they want to get to that. But he's been shooting the ball really well out of the pick and pop. I think he continues to make strides as a complementary scorer and finisher. And he and Tyrese, there's never been any question that those two will be in the starting lineup and be in finishing lineups for the most part.
Interesting indeed. And, for these Pacers, they may be a long way away from the NBA championship, but the NBA Cup is within their sights. An in-season tournament juggernaut right now at 4-0. Carlisle talked about the fact that this could be, some sort of meaningful experience for these guys as they have something to play for. They play a little bit harder here in this tournament. Halliburton, as you mentioned, said he's tired of losing. He wants this team to improve. Are you buying the in-season tournament experience as an experience builder for this Pacer team as they push forward?
Well, as you know, if the Pacers had lost, the whole thing would be gimmicky and meaningless. But because they are winning, it's clearly get ready for ring night. No, in all seriousness, I do think it has been really good. And I think it is good for young teams that are on the come up and haven't been in the playoffs or haven't been in a play-in tournament situation, especially like Tyrese and Buddy have never had that opportunity. They started their careers in Sacramento. So to see them really stepping up during crunch time against the Atlanta Hawks, I think is kind of a flashpoint moment for them that, like, hey, look, these can be winning players. And I know that sticks with Tyrese because he's made comments and been like, I haven't had a winning season since I was a freshman at Iowa State. So like, I want to get back to winning. I want people to see that I can be a winning player, and him talking about that with Team USA. So yeah, I mean, I think that they have brought another level and they've found different ways to win these games, which has been good to see. Like, they did it against the Pistons with defense in the fourth quarter. Clearly it was a high scoring affair against the Atlanta Hawks and how they had to navigate these things. So yeah, I mean, I've enjoyed the in-season tournament. I've liked doing preview and post-game coverage of it. I think there's been a lot of adjustments, especially it's been fortunate for the Pacers because a lot of these opponents they've already played at least once. So you could see different changes that they made between the first and the second game. So I'm for it. I think that the NBA made a good call. I wasn't sure what I would think about it, but I kept an open mind and I've liked it. So
I've enjoyed the in-season tournament as well. I mean, I think it just adds a different dimension to the entire league as a whole. But Caitlin, I have to ask, since you do cover the Pacers, what do you think about their in-season tournament court? That thing is bright.
It kind of looks like a swimming pool, doesn't it? Like, aren't you almost expecting like Olympic races to start as they're going up and down the court so quickly? It's a little bit distracting. I do like their city edition court that has the gray that pops and gives them a little bit different look. The Pacers have usually just always kept their same court. I think the only good looking in-season tournament court, I like the Raptors one because it's black and has the gray accents. I think that one's pretty dope. But like, how did you guys feel with the Knicks court being orange? Could people see the basketball as it was being dribbled up the court?
I liked it. I was,
yeah, it was nice.
I didn't think it was too bright. Like the pictures looked like it was going to be. This is going to be like a starburst of the court. No.
They really did a poor job marketing.
It was subtle. Yeah, it was subtle. Still looked like hardwood basketball court. I liked it. I thought it was good contrast and with the arena lights as well. And they got
they did.
It's good to go.
They did a horrible job marketing the Knicks basketball court. That thing looked bright. It looked brighter than your hoodie, Caitlin, the WNBA hoodie that you're rocking right there. I'm like, oof, gonna need some sunglasses as I watch this on TV, dim down the TV brightness a little bit. But no, it was nice. It was a nice change of pace. The thing about the Pacers, though, their court looks like you're representing the Bahamas. I don't know if you're representing the Pacers, though.
Buddy,
that's what version of Buddy they need. Yeah. Bahama Buddy.
That's the ode to Buddy Hield, man. But Caitlin, great work. We thoroughly enjoyed this conversation and hope that you'll join us again. We speak about these Pacers. Rick Carlisle has certainly given you a lot of credit. Tyrese Halliburton as well. You have your blog, you have your Patreon. What's next for you on your journey? Like, what are some of your goals this year?
I am just trying to get out as much content as the Patreon as I can, and I'm doing little things like this. I've started doing a few other podcasts talking about the NBA a little bit more at large here and there when I can fit that into my schedule. It's been a big adjustment going from being part of a team covering a team to doing it all independently and trying to balance that from game to game. So it's really just about getting as much content up about actual basketball as I can and taking some of these opportunities where I get to talk to other really smart people like the two of you. So I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, certainly good luck on your journey. Hopefully we'll catch up for another check-in report soon and just let the people know where they can find you.
Right. So my Twitter handle is at C2_Cooper. If you go there will be the link to my Patreon. It's patreon.com/basketballshewrote. And that's where all of the content is available to find. So hopefully I was listenable here and people will want to come join me and check out some of that work.
Absolutely. Great job, Caitlin Cooper. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, salute to everybody in the chat. Hit the like button, hit the share button, and subscribe to the channel. Pacers check-in report with Caitlin Cooper. Great segment there, Al. Great job. Salute to our guy Tyler on the highlights and our producer Gamba as well. We got a $10 super chat from the Rhyme Animal. Chuck D. Al says these current teams must support middle media giant efforts of folks like Caitlin Cooper. They really clarify to the fans. I hope that the Pacers give Miss Coop perks and seats galore. If not, they should be. Damn, I wish she was on when we would have read that. Salute to Chuck for that comment. I'm sure she heard it. If not, we'll certainly send that over to her. A $20 super chat from Chuck says the NBA report shows us that no team is an automatic win anywhere. Pay attention all 82 games. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Just like Chuck said, anything's possible. And you got a lot of parity in the league this year, man. A lot of parity in the league. So great conversation. Really enjoyed it. How about you, Al? What do you think?
Yeah, Caitlin's so smart, man. Like I learned so much just talking to her, and you can hear like how detailed and how she follows it. She understands the X's and O's to a T. But I also agree with Chuck, man. Like we gotta cover like the teams in the middle market. The I guess what you call it, the small market teams, as everyone complains. Like you're still getting money from the big teams. Let's understand that, but they do need more coverage, man. Like teams like Orlando, like they're young and up and coming teams. So look, I like. When we get to this is the point about the in-season tournament, as Caitlin mentioned, like we're going to see the Pacers in it, man. We haven't seen the Pacers in the playoffs, and we're going to see Tyrese Halliburton in a very intense atmosphere. Can he produce at that high level? Can that offense sustain at that high level? Yeah. I'm curious to see, man, in single elimination. You don't get 7 games to do
single
this.
Elimination. But that's why it's interesting to me now.
Yes.
When you're getting into the knockout round, you're going to have scenarios we're going to talk about. You're going to have scenarios where you could potentially have tiebreakers coming into to play. Will teams, you just heard DeMar DeRozan this weekend, he was pissed off at the Raptors for trying to run up the score on them. How is the league going to approach this now? When you need certain points, certain margins of victory to win by, all that sportsmanship, all that holding on to the ball and the clock run out, could that be out the window? How will players handle that out of respect for the game or trying to win? You got 500,000 on the line. It's no chump change to anybody, right? You got 500 grand on the line, so it's interesting.
Hey, 500K. If it's still 500K, I don't care how rich you are. All right, that for them that could be like another car or whatever it may be. It could be paying some bills for the day, for the year. You could keep your actual paycheck in the bank, but right. I think all sportsmanship is out the window, CP. If you're relying on points and it's the fourth quarter. look, you're gonna get some easy dunks, some whatever it needs to be. That differential is intense, man. Look, the experience is going to matter. If you can compete in a single elimination game at the highest level, then I think you could be ready for a 7-game series. That's just my opinion, though.
Run it up. I'm very much looking forward to that. Al, before you did mention the Orlando Magic. We're going to talk about the Orlando Magic after this quick break. This show is presented by Prize Picks, guys. Daily fantasy made easy. Al, you said you had a good weekend in Prize Picks. Let the people know about your picks and how you did last weekend, man.
Yeah, man. It could have been great, but it was still good enough. You know what I mean? So let me go through these picks so that everyone can understand what happened, how everything played out for me. Hopefully I get even luckier for tonight's picks. But what happened? So this is the sheet that you see on my, I guess, what is this? My technically it's my, I guess, your right hand side, left hand side. I can't think right now. But anyway, first player I chose. We'll go with Jalen Brunson. As you see, Jalen Brunson's been on a hot streak over the last couple of weeks, shooting the 3-ball really well. And I thought against the Miami Heat that he would still be able to do that because they're still one of the worst 3-point defending teams. I thought he'd get more than 2.5. He didn't. So he only got 1. So, well, no luck for me there when it came to makes. But the rest of the sheet did well. Tyrese Halliburton's also been on fire, as we talked about with Caitlin. Halliburton made 5 out of over the 3.5 3-pointers that I thought he was going to make. Excellent job by him. So I needed Tyrese to do it. He did it for me. The next guy who I had to worry about was Isaiah Hartenstein for the New York Knicks. You guys may not know this, but he's been averaging 5 boards on the regular. 4 to 5 boards on the regular. If you see Isaiah Hartenstein for 4.5 rebounds on Prize Picks, that's easy. Okay, that is a lock. Do not think that that's not going to happen. 4.5 rebounds for my guy Isaiah Hartenstein is a lock. Make sure to be taking it. If they have to increase it to 5 for me to like start shying away. But Isaiah Hartenstein able to save me right there. Jason Tatum going against the Orlando Magic. I had him for less than 42.5 points, rebounds, and assists. The Celtics, well, when it comes to the Orlando Magic, the Celtics just somehow fall short when they are facing this team, whether it comes to an overall team effort or just a player individually. I didn't see Tatum going against that team with all the wingspan and the depth that they have, and was going to go put up more than 42.5 points, rebounds, and assists. So that was a lock for me. I knew that was going to happen. And Julius Randle, look, this guy is leading the Knicks in assists. That was a lock. I saw 4 assists. That's easy money for Julius. Okay, I knew that was going to happen, especially against the Miami Heat. So he got me 6 there. I went 4 out of 5. I just needed Brunson to hit 2 more threes. I thought he was going to have a good night against the Miami Heat, but hey, that's what it is, man. Sometimes that's how the cookie crumbles, but at least I get something, and I don't lose everything.
There you go. Well, for you people at home, play to win, but play responsibly. Go to prizepicks.com and use promo code NBAR for an instant deposit match of up to $100. Or you can also hit the link in the video description below. Now, Al, back to league action as we go back to the weekend's action of games. And then anybody have a bigger week than the Orlando Magic? Winners of 7 in a row. The Orlando Magic, they watched the Hornets last night, 130 to 117. But they beat, and not only beat, they handled the Celtics on Friday, 113 and 96. And that was coming off of a victory over the champs at home, 124 to 119. So right now, the Orlando Magic have won 7 games in a row. They are number 2 in the Eastern Conference right now. And arguably the NBA's best defense, depending on the website that you use or the statistics that you're going by, first or second in defensive rating, man. Your thoughts on this Orlando Magic team, man?
I think the big thing that we're seeing right now, CP, when we watch the Orlando Magic, is that Jalen Suggs is really starting to play like the guy they drafted. He's definitely part of that reason, right? So to have him matched with Franz and Paolo out there and really playing at a good level, I look at this team and I'm like, yeah, makes sense why they're doing so well. I don't know if it's sustainable necessarily for the entire season for this young Magic squad, but if you're an Orlando Magic fan and you have all this youth on the team and they're out here balling, you got to be pretty proud of what's going on right now. I think, we just talked to Caitlin about how how FIBA helped Tyrese. I think FIBA also helped Paolo as well, man. So you see him coming back. He looks ready to go. Like I said, Jalen Suggs is another guy. Franz, like right now, that's looking like your core for the Magic. And then, you got to give a shout out to Cole Anthony. Cole Anthony's been playing very well too. I mean, just last night, I think he had did he have like a 30? Didn't he have a 30-point performance last night? Like he's been playing on another level, looking like a good point guard, especially off the bench. I know Markelle Fultz has been injured, but you're looking for answers, and Cole Anthony has been giving you some answers right now. So they're doing a really good job as a whole, as a unit. I'm liking what the Orlando Magic are showing, and man, this is where, like, if you're a team that's in these small markets, right, and you have to hit on your drafts, you got to be pretty proud of what's happening right now for this young Magic squad
so far. And you look at what the Rockets are doing, you see what the Timberwolves are doing, and now the Magic. We just talked about the Pacers. I mean, with these teams, do they have are they immediate championship contenders? No, but still good to see your bottom dwellers, if you will, or your perennial lottery teams trying to get out the ashes and being led by their young stars, their young players. And in this example, it's been Paolo and Franz leading the way. You look at that Celtics game in that fourth quarter, it was just, Franz going at it, Paolo going at it. They had some moments of playing in the two-man game with each other and seeing some success there. Both of those guys shooting 18 for 33 against the Celtics in that win. You mentioned Cole Anthony. He had 16 and 6 against the Celtics and then dropped a 30-piece against the Hornets. The addition of Jalen Suggs, if healthy, what can that look like? You already see that. He wears his heart on his sleeve. I like the fact that he's trying to become that emotional leader for them. He gets a little chippy, he gets a little scrappy. You saw him and Joker going at it very late in that game. So I like that as a young player, being fearless and trying to pass that on to his teammates. I like the emotion that Suggs plays with. And if he could stay healthy, I mean, he's shooting 36% from three. So is he a capable guy that can play off of Paolo and Franz? Does he give them another playmaker, right? You've seen Paolo's playmaking ability, but they truly need another, especially from the guard spot, whether it's Suggs, Anthony Black, one of those three guys, Markelle Fultz, one of those guys or a couple of those guys need to emerge to help play, make, and generate offense, especially when the game grinds down into the fourth quarter. I mean, Paolo and Franz are able to get theirs as well, but I think they certainly could use a more consistent playmaking threat there. But for Suggs, for now, if he's able to play off of those guys, I think they have a nice core, as you said, a nice three-man unit. I just wonder, what would a veteran shooter look like? Could that be an addition that they look to make at the deadline? They did bring in Ingles, but I think they do need some more shooting. I wonder what that could look like for this team and if they decide to make a move at the deadline.
Is that an Alec Burks from Detroit?
Or is that a Bogdanovich? We talked about Bogdanovich on Knicks Fan TV.
Nah. It's Alec Burks from Detroit, CP. That's who they need right now.
You're trying to push Burks Hive to Orlando.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes. Look, man, you asked for a capable shooter, a guy who can score in isolation.
Yeah.
He offers that. And I think if you're looking to upgrade over Ingles, I think that's a realistic option to go. And look, Burks, even though he's not a point guard, he's a capable guy who can bring up the rock. But for what the Magic have right now, I mean, what they're doing right now is they're using Anthony Black as that initiator, right? Now that you don't have Markelle Fultz, you're using him, and that's something that he can do. He's a solid facilitator. He's only averaging right now 1.3 assists per game, but for him, the thing is that he's a connector. He's got that designation as like Alonzo Ball type-ish, right? So you may not always see the assist with him because he can get the hockey assist and organize an offense, but he definitely will make the right reads when pushing the pace, being in the half court. So that's what they have right now without Markelle Fultz there. But I think once you get Fultz back, a guy who's been doing a solid job being a playmaker and a guy that gets downhill, this Magic squad is just going to be feisty again. I just wonder, will Cole be able to keep up that same production he's done right now while Fultz has been out? Yeah. He got 30 last night against the Hornets. I don't know if that's also part due to that you didn't have LaMelo Ball being out there and having to focus in on him too. But I like what the Magic are doing as a whole, man. They got an interesting. I feel like this either this season or next season is when they're going to make the decision of like who their core is and shake up the rest of this roster, because they're going to need some veterans, as you already mentioned. I'm being a little facetious when I say Alec Burks, but I'm also not, because I think that is a guy that they could use, someone along those lines who's seen it, who's been to the playoffs before. But this team right now, if they stay competitive like this, then it's a very good, they're taking that leap they're looking for as a squad moving forward. And then next season, you can make those changes that you want in the offseason.
And they're getting contributions. It's spreading around across the roster. No play right now averaging over 20 points per game entering this week, but 6 are averaging 11 or more. This is according to Mark Spears of Andscape. Salute to Mark Spears. He says Orlando entered the week tied with the Houston Rockets for number 1 defensive rating, and they've also limited opponents to less than 100 points in 6 of 17 games. So give credit to their coach in Jamal Mosley. Give credit to the players and buying in. And in this article, great article on Andscape by a guy, Mark Spears, he interviewed the head coach of the Magic, Jamal Mosley, and Mosley gives a lot of credit to the team's offseason camaraderie or chemistry building, their team building activities during the offseason. He said that it seemed a bit more effort was taken by this team to really come together. More guys participating in off-season workouts, just off-season, just post-ups, just having a vibe and building that camaraderie amongst the team. And he says it's emanating through the locker room, so they seem like they're well-knit unit in this locker room so far. And Mosley's challenge to this team right now, as he told Mark Spears in this article, was how do you handle the adversity now? Because you're 12-5 at the top of the East. This is no longer, we're going to go to Orlando and get an easy win on the doormat. Now this is, we got a tough matchup tonight, right? And so they're going from the hunter, so to speak, to the hunted. And Jamal Mosley's message to his team is how now you're in a new tier, new atmosphere. How do you handle the adversity that's going to come with it? So that will be the next test to see how they make it through the next quarter. But so far, looking good, man. Good story so far.
And teams are going to be looking for the young guys to knock them down a peg too. They're very young. So teams like the Celtics, like the Bucks, right? Even teams that have made it there before, like the Heat. You can even throw New York in there, because New York, even last season, we had some troubles with the Magic. Think about towards the end of last season when we lost that close game to the Magic. Like, you go down to Orlando now and how competitive, how challenging they are. As you mentioned, CP, it's not going in there and be like, this is an easy win. It's now we got to battle, but at the same time, we got to knock them down a peg, right? Because there's let's be real. There's that feeling amongst players in the NBA, like they could be all buddy and whatnot, but when it comes to playing on the court, they see blood, they smell blood in the water, and they want to make sure they know who's the top dog. Okay. Yeah. So for the Orlando Magic, that's a new challenge, because they're feeling themselves right now. They're like 12-5, feeling good. You're feeling high for a team that's usually been in the basement, right? And now you're one of those teams that's made it out of the basement currently. So can you keep it going? We'll see.
There you go, man. So to everybody in the chat, once again, hit that thumbs up button for you boys. The NBA report on the 1s and 2s. CP and Alex here with you guys. So hopefully everybody's doing well on this Monday. And just as we talked about, Al, the NBA's players of the week this week, one, Paolo Banchero at 23.5 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists. Orlando going 4-0 in the week. And Devin Booker. We got to talk about Book, man. We got to talk about Book next. Devin Booker, 30 points per game, 5 rebounds, 7.8 assists this week, and a buzzer beater. Not really the buzzer beater, but a last-second heroics last night in our building in Madison Square Garden as Devin Booker and the Phoenix Suns walk into the building shorthanded. No KD, no Bradley Beal. He needs a backy out of him. He's in a back brace somewhere trying to get right. But Devin Booker said no problem. And second half, shredded the Knicks, cooked the Knicks on his way to 28 points and 11 assists. And then a last-second three-pointer off of a Julius Randle and RJ Barrett double team. Book gets the last laugh. and then went on Twitter and went at his haters and said, what do you say? Like, how about that for crying about double teams, right?
Mm-hmm.
Tough one. Knicks lose to the Suns, 116 and 113. What you think about this one?
How many times do you want me to talk about this game, CP? How many times do you want me to talk? We talked about it yesterday for post game. We had a whole hour some odd change talking about it.
Well,
we had weekly today, and now you want me to talk about it on the NBA report again?
On the NBA report. All right, let's go from a Suns and a Booker standpoint. Like, we know the issues with the Knicks. We don't need to rehash that. Knicks came out of this thing slow. Phoenix beat them at their own game. Out rebounded the Knicks. Out hustled. More effort. You name it. Eric Gordon, excellent. 25 points for Gordon. You had a number of Phoenix Suns role players kill the Knicks. What about Book? 25 points. 28 points. 11 assists for Book. 7.8 assists this week. What'd you think about Book's week and how he's looking this year with the Suns?
It's Devin Booker. It is Devin Booker. That's the only way I can describe it. Look, the fact that Drake has lines about Book in his songs, that just tells you how much of an impactful player he is. This is a guy that was in the NBA Finals not too long ago, CP, going against the Milwaukee Bucks. Okay, they fell short, but this is a guy who has that cloth of a competitor, who's just out there to like be the best at any time. I like his game, man. The fact that he can go between being a facilitator and being a lethal scorer is just so damn impressive. Okay. And the fact that he was a 6-man at Kentucky, but now he's one of the top 10, top 15 guys in the league that you can look to and be like, yo, we got to make sure we stop him. Right. Think about what Tibbs had last night. They were trying to trap him, double team him, get the ball out of his hands. We don't need that. We do not need that, as you would say on KFTV. So, look, he's awesome. He's fantastic. They're going to need everything from him this season, next to KD, next to Beal, if they really want to have a shot at winning the title. But he's fantastic, dude. I mean, just think about where he's come from as a player, right? He was on a lowly Suns team. Yeah. The thing is that we joked when he went to Boston, like they memed his face on top of Wilt Chamberlain getting the 70 points to get Boston. It's like, oh, he's just an empty stats guy. That's who he is. All he can do is just score. He doesn't do anything else. But then they go on that magical 8 run in the bubble with Monty. And now we see what he really is, man. He's a legit winner. He's one of the most impactful players in the NBA. If you're a Phoenix Suns fan, you got to be thrilled to have him on your team. That's why other people are like, is he going to leave? That's why Knicks fans are like, is he going to leave? Is this the CAA connection that Leon Rose has got up his pocket that we're waiting for? But like I said, man, the only thing that comes back to for the Phoenix Suns is that this is championship or bust for them, right? You've sunk all your costs into getting KD, right? Because you traded Mikal Bridges and everybody else to go get him. You did the same thing to go get Bradley Beal because you said CP3 is not that guy. You moved DeAndre Ayton for Nurkic to round out the depth and everything else. Now it's championship or bust. You got a small window with this team. Can the Phoenix Suns do it? That's the big question for the rest of this year. We know how good Book is. Can this be the team that wins it all? I'm not too high on them.
Well, you got to see them healthy first. I think if they can stay healthy, sure, you have to respect it, especially when you have 3 capable shot creators like that. But I think the most important thing, what you see here, especially with Book, is you see why the Suns went out and made the deal for Bradley Beal, bringing him here with Book and KD and with no real point guard option because they feel like they have it in Book. He averaged 7 assists in the playoffs last year, 7 this week. You saw how effortlessly he's able to facilitate and play make and use the defense's attention on him. You look last night at a Knick game, 2 on the ball, every possession, using that against them, taking what the defense is giving him and making his team better. This is what we mean, make his team better. And I like that because for Book, it's more than just being a scorer. This is a guy that can elevate his team. And you saw that last night against the Knicks. And then second half, he said, okay, you guys are just role players. I need to put the stamp on this thing and keep the Knicks at bay. And that's what he did. He started to turn up as a scorer in the second half of this game and then put the nail in the coffin. So what you're seeing with Phoenix is Book can play make. They trust Beal can play make when we see him on the court. KD can play make. So they should be okay in that regard. How they work, how the big man depth works out for them is left to be seen. Will they have enough? Will they have consistent 3-point shooting in the playoffs? Certainly like Eric Gordon. I think he's going to play a big role there. They have Watanabe there. You have Grayson Allen, who didn't play last night in the victory over the Knicks. So I think they have the shooting depth. I still want to see if they have enough wing defense. Nasir Little has been doing his thing, but do they have enough? They have Keisha Bates-Diop. And then do they have enough behind Nurkic? Is Ebanks that guy for them?
I like him. I think he's good, man.
Yeah, he's a scrapper. Definitely a scrapper. But for me, the most important thing for them, they got to get healthy first and then start to try to build some chemistry. But Bradley Beal, I mean, you haven't even played in the season and your back is already cooked. Like, what's going on here? So,
look, this is
sweet.
It's interesting when you think about a KD team. The last 2 stops he's had out in Brooklyn and now out in Phoenix. And the issue when they got James Harden and they had Kyrie is that they didn't have enough time being on the court together, right? And to really develop that chemistry, it's going to play the same. It's going to be the same way. I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you, if you do not have on-court chemistry throughout most of the season, that's what the 82-game season is, right? It's to win and figure out your chemistry. If they don't get that, I don't see how you're going to tell me that Book, KD, and Beal are going to figure it all out and be that team. To me, that's a tall order.
Tall order. Let's go to Milwaukee, Al. The storyline here last night, Damian Lillard and the Bucks against his old team led by Scoot Henderson, the new look Blazers. And this one was a dogfight, ladies and gentlemen, because early in this game, the Milwaukee Bucks found themselves down by as much as 26 points. You heard it first. 26 points. They turn the ball over 17 times, give up 27 points off of turnovers. I mean, which team is the rebuilding team and which team is the one with championship aspirations? They were on the ropes down by 26 to this Blazers team. Thank God for Taylor 2 halves when they finally able to wake up. Dame starts to wake up a little bit. He scores 31 on 7 of 21 shooting from the field, 4 of 12 from 3. You had Giannis with 33, 16, and 6. Bucks survive, man, 108 to 102. Boy, oh boy, this could have been an embarrassing loss at home to a Blazer team that, I mean, they're 4 and 12. Put it that way, 4 and 12. Well, what's going on with the Bucks, man? I'm not impressed.
That defense is lackluster. There's a play, I think it was Shadon Sharp just scooting right past Damian Lillard, and it's like, whoo. And you figured for Dame facing against his old team, you had the narratives of like, oh, not necessarily a revenge game, but just like he'd get up to just defeat his own team like they did. But this was bad, CP. Absolutely bad. It gave me like Knicks vibes where it's like guys are asleep at the beginning in the first half. I mean, look, the only guys in the first half to do anything, CP, was Giannis, was Dame, and Brook. Okay? Those are your only guys that did anything in the first half. And that's just insane to even think about because this is a team that's supposed to be built on depth. You get rid of Drew Holiday. You expect to have enough for this team where you can continuously score, but CP, let me just go run through let me run through who did the most in the first half, okay? And I'm sorry, I left out one more person. But here you go. They had 14 points from Damian Lillard in the first half. You then had Giannis with 18 points in the first half. Brook with 7, Malik Beasley with 8, and the next guy with any contributions were Campaign with 3 and Pat Connaughton with 2. You ain't doing anything with those type of contributions from your role players, okay? Thankfully, Bobby Porter's got it going in the second half because Bobby was quiet too. We're looking at you, Mr. Bobby, because we remember you on the Knicks and your revenge game against the Bulls. Yeah. But come on, man. You're supposed to be 6th man on this team and you got nothing? 0 in 12 minutes? That's crazy. You only had 1 steal and 1 rebound. You only took 2 shots. That's also a big reason why they were down, but you would expect with a team like Giannis and Dame, like everyone else would flourish so easily, but crazy, man. This is the type of stuff that gives me you're going to need Dame and Giannis to be on 24/7 for this team, because if they are anything short of great, this team's in trouble because they do not have the defense to do it. I mean, you watch Malik Beasley. There's clips of him just like being stuck. Like he's stuck with glued to the court, and guys are passing him by. Pat Connaughton, not necessarily the most agile guy to keep up with anyone defensively. And then like you got Brooks, who's starting to turn it back around and like show you why he was that player in Defensive Player of the Year running. But this team, man, this team needs a lot of help from the supporting cast. And I don't know what you're going to do at the trade deadline to make any of those changes. I mean, they're just very top heavy at this point.
In this instant gratification, society that we live in, we don't give time. We don't have patience for chemistry, for getting it together. We don't have it, especially in this big three era. Ever since the Heatles came together, you turn the hourglass, right? Yep. Oh, we big three. Okay. Are they going to win it this year? Oh, failure. It's going to take a while. And you see Adrian Griffin, as Chuck is saying in the chat,
man,
Adrian Griffin, he says he's going through his Darwin Ham phase. Is that his Frank Vogel phase with the Lakers? Is that his Eric Spoelstra phase with the Heat when LeBron got there? Remember, they had a rift. Remember the situation where LeBron kind of bumped him on the sidelines. Everybody's like, oh, man, it's getting heated here. These guys are falling apart because everybody wanted to see them fail. And after they lost the finals the first go around, it was like, oh, man, they got a lot of work to do. This is the interesting dynamic. We just talked about Phoenix. We're talking about the Bucks. When you put these big super teams together, there's never any patience or time to see it through. And everybody's under that pressure to get it done and get it done this year. The Nets, same thing with KD, Kyrie, and ultimately Harden. Like, it's always you put them on that treadmill, you turn over the hourglass, and you're just waiting for miracles to happen. I don't know. I don't see it with this Bucks team. It's a very long season, but I don't think they have the depth. I don't think they have the defense to ultimately run the gauntlet and get it through. And Dame hasn't been looking like Dame. Nope. Dame hasn't been looking like Dame. He got 31.
And that's your guy, CP.
That is my guy. But he has a big adjustment to make. And another year older.
He does, man. And this is where you think you're making the right move, right? If you're looking at this and like we're talking about this at this time in this moment, things could completely change in the future for this Bucks team. They could figure it out. They can make the right trade and they can fix their perimeter defense. As JJ noted, like the perimeter defense is bad. Like I talk about Pat Connaughton and Malik Beasley. Like you're looking like, hey, this is where Drew was supposed to be that dude, right? This is where Drew helped. This is where Grayson Allen helped. Grayson Allen, not necessarily a lockdown defender, but he was a good enough defender that you threw him out there. And this is what kept the Bucks alive, and where you didn't have Giannis looking like just a dude scrambling over the place trying to cover a lot of ground. Same thing with Brook, but they got to figure it out, man. They got to make a trade if they can, because the paint presence is fine. It's the perimeter defense is woeful, and you need a good two guard. Like you see it with Brunson, right? Like you have Grimes out there for that reason. You have Quickly next to him, a guy that can actually defend. Who's that guy that you're saying at the Bucks two guard position, or even on the wing, that's saying, you know what? We got a lockdown defender right there. There's no one I'm looking at saying that's a lockdown defender. Beasley's never been known as a lockdown defender. Never.
Yeah.
So it's, hey, if you're the Bucks, gotta do a lot of soul searching, man. Maybe that's another team we should go into next. Get somebody on who covers the Bucks and have a conversation about them and see how they feel move forward.
Let's do it, man. We'll call my guy Steve Novak, call Novocaine up and get him on here for a Bucks check-in report. So to everybody in the chat, once again, hit that like button, hit the share button, subscribe to the channel, the NBA Report on the ones and twos, CP and Alex. Al, next segment, we won't go too deep into this. You have the in-season tournament going on tomorrow, last day of group play. A lot on the line. There are a lot of implications here. We're not going to get into the scenarios for every team because people will get thoroughly confused. But you have, Golden State is in contention to win their group. Houston, Minnesota, New Orleans, Phoenix, Sacramento out west. Out east, you have Atlanta, you have Boston, Brooklyn vying for Group C. potential winning their group. Atlanta's in the running for a wild card. Yeah, Boston, Brooklyn, Orlando vying for Group C title. You have Cleveland in the mix here for a wild card. Miami, Milwaukee, the Knicks battling for Group B. Knicks also in the running for the wild card, and Philadelphia in the running for their wild card as well. So I think by Wednesday, when we come back on Wednesday, we'll have our guy Combos Court 1-2 combo in the building. We will recap Tuesday's night's action, and we'll see who's moving on to the quarterfinals, man. We'll see who's moving on to the quarterfinals. But I think the key point here is, as we touched on, Tuesday could be very interesting just in terms of how tiebreakers work. How will teams play this? Will teams try to run up the score, expand their margin of victory to try to advance? It's going to be interesting to see how that works. I think that's my main takeaway.
I think that's a great takeaway. The running up the score is definitely going to be interesting because when you look at and we just talked about it for the Knicks, right? You see how it's just a small point differential between them and the Heat. Like, if you have the opportunity to just run up the score against the Hornets in the fourth quarter, like I'm not slowing down. Like, I'm not slowing down whatsoever because I need those points. Like, you see how far ahead Milwaukee is. They got a plus 39, Knicks plus 18, Miami plus 11. It's a small gap between Miami and the Knicks right now. So I would expect that. So it'll be interesting. That's definitely one to take away. I'm just looking forward to the knockout round, CP. I just want to see how competitive the next round is because that will really tell how well this in-season tournament does, because you got to think in like 2-3 years, right? The whole point, as we already discussed, is that Adam Silver's trying to get another media deal done. This is another thing to offer that's part of the package. You know, you can go to a team like, as you said, Apple TV. You can go to Netflix. Anybody else who wants to get in on this in-season tournament and have that as like the main platform it's going to be played on. So seeing how this performs and seeing if the pot will get increased, because if you get sponsors for this, right? You get sponsors, someone to buy into this, that $500,000 pot is increasing dramatically. That's just what's going to happen. So I'm looking forward to the competition level, but also I'm looking forward to get some new blood in here, man. Like, I want to see these teams like actually compete. That's the intrigue about it.
Yeah. And we talked about all today, Pacers, the Timberwolves we've talked about in the past, Magic, all these guys have a chance to make something special out of this season if they're not necessarily true title contenders. So let's see how that plays out. And Wednesday's show will be very interesting. Let's go to our prize picks of the night. Al, Prize Picks is today's sponsor and the sponsor of the NBA Report. And once again, go to prizepicks.com, use promo code NBAR for an instant deposit match up to $100, or you can hit the link in the video description. Prize Picks, daily fantasy made easy. And when we say easy, you got a chance to win up to 25 times your money on Prize Picks. And all you have to do is select between 2 to 6 players. You can pick and choose between a number of different sports and pick and choose between a number of different stats. Prize Picks has it all. They also include fast payouts and excellent customer service. And here's where I'm going on my picks for today, Al. We have the Lakers and the Sixers in Philadelphia. Lakers on their road trip. I'm going with Tyrese Maxey with more than 26.5 points. I'm going with Maxey here. Also on this ticket, I'm going with Anthony Davis with more than 23.5 points. Yes, Anthony Davis is going up against Joel Embiid, but he has fared pretty well against Joel Embiid, including averaging 31 points per game in their last 2 outings in Philadelphia. So as long as AD can stay out of foul trouble, I think he should serve well in this game. Philadelphia is about 14th in the league in terms of points per game given up to opposing bigs. And so I think Anthony Davis will fare well in this game. So I'm going with AD with more than 23.5 points. My Prize Picks lock of the night, Al, I'm going with Jaden Ivey. I'm going to Detroit. I'm going to Jaden Ivey with more than 16.5 points. It's been a struggle this year for Jaden Ivey. He's been in and out of the lineup Monty Williams has been bringing him along slowly. He's battled some injury issues, some illness as well. But over his last 4 games, Jaden Ivey has been turning it up a notch, and I think he's going to do that again in Washington against the Wizards. I'm going with Jaden Ivey with more than 16.5 points. He scored 25 against the Pacers in their last matchup on Friday, 17 against the Nuggets. I feel like Jaden Ivey's ratcheting up, and who better to get back on track against than the Washington Wizards, the team giving up damn near the second most points per game in the NBA, especially to opposing guards. They've been getting absolutely torched. So to a Wizards team that will play zero defense, I think this is going to be a track meet. And so I'm going with Jaden Ivey over 16.5 points in this game, with more than 16.5 points in this game. Next, my next pick, I'm going with Ausar Thompson in this game with less than 24.5 points, rebounds, and assists. Thompson has not hit that number in his last 5 outings. I think he will get the rebounding numbers, but I'm not so sure in terms of the points and assist numbers. So I'm going with Ausar Thompson with less than 24.5 points, rebounds, and assists. Felt like that number was a bit too high. Also in this game, I'm going Wizards. Detroit heavy. Battle of the bumps tonight. I'm going with Kyle Kuzma with more than 35.5 points, rebounds, and assists. So that's my ticket tonight. 5 picks, $20 flex pay to pay out $200.
Battle of the bums. Let's go.
Yeah, Battle of the bums.
That's good, man.
Yeah.
I like that. I like your picks. I like
Yep.
your picks.
Yep.
Here's what I got going for tonight.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So for tonight, I chose Nikola Jokic. The Denver Nuggets are facing the Los Angeles Clippers. Earlier this year, Jokic did go off to get over 30 points. I believe that he will go over 53.5 points, rebounds, and assists. He did that the last 2 games. He did that against the Spurs last night. I believe he'll continue that hot streak against the Clippers team where they're going to need him. You know, there's no Jamal Murray yet. So with him on the court, I'm expecting Nikola Jokic to do that. Then Anthony Davis, you talked about how the Lakers are facing the 76ers tonight. I believe that Anthony Davis will take at least 1 3-point attempt, which is why I have him getting more than 0.5. I feel like that's just easy money. I feel like that you can just kind of guarantee that, even though he's not necessarily the biggest 3-point shooter, but I'm going to take that gamble tonight. I think there's going to be an opportunity for him to launch a 3. I then went back to the same game. CP. LeBron James for more than 25.5 points. I think he's going to be needed against this Philly team. They're a tough matchup. You got Maxey, you got Embiid. Those are your top 2 scorers right there. You can't sleep on this team, on the Sixers right now. So I think you're going to need big nights from LeBron James, Anthony Davis, Austin Reeves, and let's see if D'Angelo Russell will even help there, but it's going to be led by LeBron James. I then went to New Orleans because they're in the mini series against the Utah Jazz right now. Brandon Ingram went to the line more than 4 times. I believe that will happen again tonight. I believe he'll have made 4 free throws. Good, solid shooter from the line. I believe he can make 4 tonight. I think he's going to get fouled more than twice. That's just how it goes. And then Tyrese Maxey. I'm going back to the Lakers and Sixers game. Look, you're gonna need points tonight, man. You're gonna need points if you're gonna try to beat the Lakers. Okay, they got a solid defense, but you're gonna need points, and that means a lot of attempts. I'm going with Tyrese Maxey for more than 19.5 attempts. He has done it in the past. He fluctuates up and down between like the 16 to over 20 mark. I think he did 25 one night. I'm buying it. I think tonight's going to be a night where they're going to need Maxey to put up a lot of shots to keep up with the Lakers. I'm taking Maxey for more than 19.5 field goals attempted. And that is my selection.
There you go. There you go. All right, man. Well, for you guys at home, play to win, but play responsibly. Go to prizepicks.com. Use promo code MBAR for an instant deposit match up to $100, or you can just hit the link in the chat or the video description. All right, Al. Great show. Great show to all the mods. Great show to our producers, man. Tyler Gamba. We will be back on Wednesday with our Guy 1-2 combo. We'll be back on Wednesday. We'll recap all of the NBA in-season tournament action. And also remember that this show is available in audio podcast format. No reason to miss it. You can catch us on all major podcast platforms. Once again, we want to thank our guest, Caitlin Cooper, for joining us for the Pacers check-in report. If you want to hear more about your team, if you want to do a deep dive on your team, leave us a comment in the comment section, and we'll bring on the relevant guests, man. This is the NBA report. The network is expansive, and we're going to just continue to hit this thing with fire guests each week. And so we hope that you continue to enjoy. We hope that you learn. We hope that you are entertained. And we'll see you guys on Wednesday, man. Al, great show. Doubleheader in the books. Great job, everybody. See you guys on Wednesday. Peace.